There are 298 prisoners on death row in the state of Florida. This is part 32 of the series. Mark Poole, 60 years old, 18 years on death row. For a robbery murder, Poole was given the death penalty by the state of Florida. According to court records, Poole broke into a house and beat Noah Scott to death before essaying Scott's expectant fiancée. Between 11:30 p.m. and 12 a.m. on October 12, 2001, Noah Scott and Loretta White went to bed after playing some video games in their mobile home's bedroom. White awoke later that night with Poole seated on top of her and a pillow covering her face. She pleaded with Poole not to hurt her because she was pregnant as he started to essay her. He assaulted White with a tire iron repeatedly as she resisted and fought back. The tire iron severed one of her fingers and a portion of another finger as she raised her hand to shield her head. Poole asked White where the money was while hitting her repeatedly. As Scott struggled to defend White, Poole continued to strike Scott in the head until he died of blunt force head trauma. At some point after the attack, Poole left the bedroom and White was able to get off the bed and put on clothes, but she passed out before leaving the bedroom. When Poole entered the room again, he touched her private area and said, "Thank you." For the remainder of the evening, White was in and out of consciousness. The next time she saw the clock was between 8 and 8:30 in the morning when her alarm went off. White retrieved her cell phone and dialed 911. Soon after, police were called and sent to the house. White was badly hurt in the corridor next to the bedroom, while Scott was found unconscious in the room. White lost a portion of her finger and sustained numerous face and head wounds in addition to a concussion. Scott was declared dead on the spot. Thomas BEVEL, 42 years old, 18 years on death row. BEVEL was found guilty of shooting and killing Garrick Stringfield and his 13-year-old son, Philip Sims, in 2004. BEVEL and others claimed that Stringfield and BEVEL were drug dealers. When Sims was fatally shot, he was engaged in video game playing. BEVEL was also convicted of wounding a woman visiting Stringfield who played dead after BEVEL shot her. PINKNEY Carter, 69 years old, 18 years on death row. For killing his ex-girlfriend, her new partner, and her daughter, Carter was found guilty. After the crime, Carter escaped to Mexico by swimming across the Rio Grande and leaving his pickup at the Texas-Mexico border. He was promptly detained by Mexican officials on suspicion of possessing a weapon, but they released him 3 months later after he had paid a $1,000 fine. 2 years later, a state trooper in Kentucky arrested him on suspicion of public intoxication after spotting him on a wanted poster. Carter was sentenced to death for killing 35-year-old Liz Reed and 49-year-old Glenn Pafford, and to life for 16-year-old Courtney Smith's murder. John Mosley, 59 years old, 17 years on death row. John Mosley Jr. was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Linda Wilkes and sentenced to death for her son's Jaquan Mosley murder. This happened in 2005. The two disappeared in 2004, and when the authorities found Wilkes in Alachua County a month later, her body was burned. Her son's body was never found. Prosecutors said he killed Wilkes and the baby when she asked for child support. Mosley denied the baby was his. Robert Bailey, 41 years old, 16 years on death row. The Panama City Beach Police Department's Sergeant Kevin Kite stopped a white Dodge Durango that was obstructing traffic on Front Beach Road around 10:20 p.m. on March 27, 2005. The driver of the car was Robert Bailey, and his passenger was Tori Crawford, a friend of his. Kite radioed the dispatcher at 10:30 p.m. to report being shot. At a nearby site, Officer Michael Rozier was conducting a traffic stop. He headed to the Front Beach Road location as soon as he learned that Kite had been shot. Kite was on the ground being treated by 2 other cops. Following the vehicle's exiting traces, Rozier discovered a white Dodge Durango parked a short distance away. Shortly after Kite's radio communication, other police officers arrived at the area. The officers started providing emergency medical help right away. Paramedics eventually came and continued CPR. Kite was never found to have a pulse, and the hospital declared him dead. That evening, Panama City Beach resident Hillary Schaefer was driving on Front Beach Road. She observed that a police car had been halted. She spotted the cop approaching the white Dodge Durango as she maneuvered her pickup into a position parallel to it. The officer had his right hand on his revolver and his left hand was reaching back toward his handcuffs. Schaefer turned to start driving when she heard 2 shots being fired. When she turned around, she observed the Durango's driver shoot the officer with a 3rd round. Robert Bailey was revealed to be the Durango's driver by Schaefer later. Troy Victorino, 47 years old, 17 years on death row. Jerone Hunter, 37 years old, 17 years on death row. In a mass murder that took place in a home on Telford Lane in Deltona, Victorino and Jerone Hunter were found guilty in 2006 and given the death penalty. In connection with the killings, Michael Salas, 31 years old, received a life sentence. Robert Cannon, 31 years old as well, who was facing the death penalty, entered a guilty plea and is now serving a life sentence. Erin Bellinger, 22 years old, Michelle Nathan, 19 years old, Robert Tito Gonzalez, 28 years old, Jonathan Gleason, 17 years old, Francisco Flaco Ayoroman, 30 years old, and Anthony Vega, 34 years old, were all killed in the horrific crime. A dog was also killed. The 6 victims' autopsies were examined by James Fulcher, the chief medical examiner for Volusia County. According to Fulcher, blunt force trauma was the cause of death for everyone. He described stab wounds and skull fractures among the victims. A few of the skull fractures were what Fulcher described as hinge fractures, which separate the skull into 2 parts. According to him, some of the wounds happened after the victims were already dead or close to death. Every victim, however, had defense wounds, showing they were all still alive and able to experience the excruciating pain. Richard Knight, 45 years old, 16 years on death row. Knight shared an apartment with Hans Mullings, his cousin, Odysseus Stevens, Hanesia Mullings, and Mullings' girlfriend. Knight had received multiple requests to leave from Mullings and Odysseus. Mullings was at work the evening of the murder, June 27, 2000. He spoke to Odysseus just before 9 o'clock and she stated she was going to bed. Odysseus and Hanesia were all at the flat with Knight. Around midnight, an upstairs neighbor heard 2 female voices, one of which was a sobbing child, and many banging noises on the apartment walls. The neighbor dialed 911 on June 28, 2000 at 12:21 a.m. After the police arrived, the cries persisted. The first person to reply was Officer Vincent Sachs. The master bedroom and hallway lights were on when he arrived at 12:29 a.m., and the second bedroom's window was slightly ajar. He knocked and got no response, so he walked around the unit and saw that the lights were out and that the windows that had been slightly ajar were now totally open with blinds hanging out of them. Sachs peered through the dining room window with his flashlight. In the dining room and master bedroom, he observed blood. He also saw Hanesia huddled up against the door in the fetal position. Odysseus' body was in the living room when he entered. The flat had not been ransacked and all of the doors were shut. The next officer to arrive was Officer Natalie Mockney, who circled the unit. Approximately 100 yards from the structure, she also observed Knight on the other side of some hedges and the open window. She called him over so she could interview him. Joining Mockney was Officer Sachs. The cops reported that Knight had cuts on his hands, a scrape on his shoulder, and a scratch on his chest. Knight was clearly wet, even if it wasn't pouring. Knight said that he had been jogging despite the fact that he was wearing formal clothing and dress shoes and that he owned the property but lacked the necessary keys to enter. The $10 cash he was holding and the clothes he was wearing both had blood on them. Odysseus was discovered in the living room floor close to the door, surrounded by a number of shattered knife fragments. She was stabbed 21 times, 14 times in the neck, once in the chin, and the remaining 16 times on her back and chest. She also had bruising, ligature marks, and 24 puncture or scrap wounds on her body. The belt or any other comparable device seemed to have caused the injuries. She also sustained injuries in self-defense to both hands, legs, chest, back, and neck. Even though some of the knife wounds were lethal, none would have caused rapid demise. She had lip and scalp bruises from being hit. According to Davis, Odysseus ran to the living room as Knight started his attack in the bedroom. After the attack, Odysseus was conscious for 10 to 15 minutes, according to his estimation. Nelson Serrano, 85 years old, 16 years on death row. At the Erie manufacturing facility in Bartow on December 3, 1997, Frank Dosso, Diane Patiso, George Patiso, and George Gonsalves were discovered shot execution style. Prosecutors said that Diane Patiso, a young state prosecutor, was killed in order to prevent her from identifying the killer. That evening, she had gone to the factory to pick up her brother Frank and her husband George. Serrano was charged by Dosso and Gonsalves of graft and then theft, but investigators, including the FBI, disproved these claims. The victims' relatives quickly suspected Nelson Serrano, a former business partner and CEO, even though there was no physical evidence at the scene connecting him to the crime. Nelson Serrano opened a different business checking account with a different bank in the summer of 1997. In order to protect funds from Dosso and Gonsalves, he deposited 2 checks totaling more than $200,000 from Erie's sister firm Garment Conveyor Systems as instructed by corporate counsel. There were disputes over how the assets should be divided, and Serrano claimed there were 2 sets of books. Serrano sued his partner in a civil matter. In the end, the other 2 partners decided to have Serrano resign as president, and he did so. The building's locks were then modified after that. Francisco Serrano had been sacked by Phil Dosso and George Gonsalves not long before Serrano was fired as CEO. Serrano, according to the prosecution, was upset that Gonsalves and Phil Dosso, the company's third partner, had fired him and his son from both businesses. Authorities claimed that both Serrano men had a motive for the killings, but Francisco Serrano offered an alibi. His father told the police he was in an Atlanta hotel room with a migraine headache all day, so no one saw him or talked to him. Leo Boatman, 37 years old, 1 year on death row. William Wells, 48 years old, 2 years on death row. Boatman was previously given a life sentence for the 2006 murders of 2 Santa Fe college students in the Ocala National Forest, Amber Peck and John Parker, both 26 years old. Boatman was just 21 years old when he committed these crimes. In addition, he received a sentence of an extra 15 years for third-degree murder in Charlotte County in 2013 and an additional 7 years for the attempted murder of a prisoner in Dixie County in 2010. Prosecutors say Boatman and another man, William Edward Wells III, were responsible for killing fellow inmate William Chapman. Wells was sentenced to life in this case, but this was the crime that landed Boatman on death row. Wells, who was dubbed the Mayport Monster after killing 5 people in the Jacksonville region, including his wife in 23, may have fulfilled his final ambition. After killing 7 people, William Edward Wells III was given his first death sentence for the murder of a prisoner at the Florida State Prison. Wells, who also killed a fellow inmate in 2011 and had tried to kill another in a Miami-Dade prison in 2008, said before that he wants to die. Please hit that subscribe button if you like my channel. See you next time. Bye bye.